like I constantly hear this complaint that like Gen Z is not resilient. I don't actually see that trend in the data anywhere. What I see is like the people in Gen Z who are struggling with mental health are much more vocal about it than previous generations were. And I think that's in part because mental health has been normalized, or mental illness challenges have become more discussable than they were, which is a good thing. I think it's in part also because there's a norm of self-expression that pervades social media that allows people to share things that they might have only said to, a friend or a family member. Now get broadcast.
But suicides are way up in Gen Z from other generations. That's not just vocalization. That's
that's
hard
right.
data. Yeah.
No, I mean that's a hugely concerning problem. But yeah, I think one of the world's leading suicidologists, Matthew Knock, has basically highlighted that suicide is very difficult to predict. And suicide rates actually don't consistently track with rates of mental illness, at the country level or the population level, which is sort of complicated. There's also, Jen Senior wrote a beautiful article a few years back about sort of happiness and mental health challenges that people face. And she covered some evidence suggesting that the majority of people who attempt suicide, if they survive, never try again. You could wonder if there's something different about the people who end up dying by suicide from those who attempt it but survive. Was that more of a cry for help, for example? But I think that the trend of the data to me suggests that like, for many people, the sense of despair that leads them to want to take their own life is not permanent. And surviving that often, turns a page or opens a door that shifts things for them. And so I'm really hesitant to say, okay, suicides are up among a generation, and therefore the generation lacks resilience.
What else can you say about Gen Z besides the fact that they're more kind of vocal about their mental health issues?
What else can we say about Gen Z? This is a good question. How do you answer that question in an empirically responsible, non-inflammatory manner? Here's what I think. We're actually doing a podcast on age and generational myths right now.
Okay.
And one of the things that I see again and again in the data is basically every generation has criticized the younger generation on the same dimensions that we're perhaps judging Gen Z a little bit on now. And my read is that every generation basically wants the same things and has slightly different ways of expressing those desires. And sometimes people overreact to the way that the value is communicated, not realizing that the underlying value is the same. For example, like every generation wants quality of life. Older generations were a little bit more willing to sacrifice the amount of time they had with their family to work to provide. And Gen Z is a little bit more vocal about not doing that. But at the end of the day, like they all want to provide for their families, right?
That has been a huge shift over the last 10 years, where young people more and more are looking for quality of life in their workplace and in their kind of work-life balance. And this does give them a lot of shit from Gen Xers and boomers about like, we used to work 87 hours a week and not complain about it. And this generation is calling bullshit on that.
They are.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But if you want to live in Bushwick and eat avocado toast every day, you got to work for it.
Well, here's what's interesting about that is, yes, this generation is, sounding the alarm or objecting, but they're not actually on average working fewer hours than millennials did or Gen Xers did.
Interesting.
And so it may well be that what we're reacting to is the complaining, right? What they're saying as opposed to the behavior, what they're doing.
You've been teaching now for, 15 years? Have you noticed a difference from the students now from when you started? And what difference do you think COVID might have made in that?
Oh, so the biggest difference that I've seen over my 15 years here at Penn is there are more students more impatient for their climb up the career ladder than in the past. So when I got here, 2009, there were a lot of students who had big career dreams and wanted to know what should be on my 10-year plan in order to get there. And I had to explain to them, you can't make a 10-year plan. You can plan 1 or 2 steps ahead.
Right.
Now it's much more like, I want to be at the same destination in 2 years.
Right.
How do I get there?
Right.
And with that expectation of a meteoric rise, I think comes what someone call
Pressure?
pressure to succeed fast,
Mm-hmm.
coupled with an expectation that you're going to have a voice right away in your workplace.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
My agent, who's at a big agency, she complains about this all the time. She said the new folks she's bringing on to the agency, they start as an assistant, right? So you're getting coffee and you're just answering phones and you're scheduling, right? That's all you're doing. And she's had to go through several young assistants who have really kind of thrown up their arms because they thought, like, I thought this was going to be more collaborative. Meanwhile, she's been an agent for like 35 years. Like, why not you sit there for a couple of years, just listen to the phone calls,
Learn.
schedule, learn, get some coffees. You're going to learn a lot at the end of a period of time.
well, so I think that's in part a failure of teachers and in part a failure of leaders. So the teacher failure is we've created an illusion at universities that the day you graduate, your learning is over and now you can start succeeding.
Interesting.
And I think that's such a big mistake. I think I've had a lot of conversations with students who think it's selfish to prioritize learning in their first or second job. Well, was it selfish to go to college and spend 4 years just learning? You're helping no one.
Right.
No one at all. Well, no, I was making an investment in my education and growth. Why do you think that education should stop the day you get a diploma? It shouldn't. Choose your first job or two to try to figure out how you can learn the most, and then you're better equipped to make a bigger difference later.
That's amazing.
Would be my guidance.
The Soul Boom Podcast. Subscribe now on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever else you get your stupid podcasts.